Welcome to the Whurthy Services training video series. This is Module 5, Advanced Whurthy Setup. In this first video, we're going to walk through Whurthy settings. We'll start by taking a look at the general and automated loyalty program settings. Then we'll review the Whurthy Services settings before finishing the review by looking briefly at tax settings. So over to the browser, I'm logged in as a super user account. As is always the case, when we want to manage administrative type functions and settings, we want to be logged in as a super user, which I am right now. And so to find the Whurthy or global settings, we can look to the right-hand sidebar, the Whurthy links, and scroll down until we get to the administration section. And then we click on the Whurthy settings link. So in the global settings, we've touched on many of these settings before. In this video, we're going to walk one by one through every single setting in their order so that you know you've got a reference video to look back to if you ever have a question about settings. We'll also discuss some of the settings in greater detail than we have done before. So I'm going to scroll down to the bottom and I'm going to click on the Edit Settings button. And so the first section, Edit Company Settings, it's a pretty general setting. The basic idea is that whilst the Whurthy team will store your company's name behind the scenes as a part of the base installation, you do get the option to change your company signature. There are a couple of emails that get sent out where your company signature will be used at the end of the email. So if you have any kind of tagline, this is where you can enter it there. But if what you want to do is just have your company name, that's fine too. This field is designed to support any branding type decisions or theme that you may have in place. In the next field, we have the multiple locations selection of yes or no. We have looked at this before when we were setting up venues. The general recommendation is if you have multiple locations or rooms, that we'd encourage you to select yes. Now, if we select no, it does mean that you've got a single location address. However, selecting no is only recommended for organizations with just one room and for those organizations that don't anticipate expanding your physical presence. If you leave this set as no, it might be a little bit problematic, but it's not really a big issue. The biggest challenge would really relate to as you expand, needing to make updates. But that being said, we wouldn't anticipate rapid expansion, and it's a simple setting change to make. If you were to change it from no to yes and you were to add venues, then you would just need to be updating the addresses for each venue. Where we'd anticipate that this might be a problem is for those organizations that selected no and had one address, and then you've got multiple rooms. So you may have a rather large building, and you might have 5, 10, or more rooms. And so what you might do then is you might manage the inflow of customers through a reception and directing different customers to the respective room. And that's perfectly fine for you to do. And so if that works for you, then you could leave it as no. However, if you then expanded as an organization and you recognized, oh, we're going to have another physical address, at this point, you would want to come back to multiple locations, particularly is one of two scenarios as to why you'd want to come back and change it from no to yes. The first would be if you had a location in a different time zone. And so that will have a big ramification. At this point, the recommendation is that even though we've allowed for flexibility, if you select yes, the effort for each location is really only about selecting a physical or a virtual address. Now, there's another big reason, though, for having yes to multiple locations. So as well as time zones, it also concerns taxation. Because if you have a physical facility and you expand, and say, for example, you had one facility in the province of Alberta, Canada, and then you had another facility after a while where you expanded to westward and you opened up a location in British Columbia. Now you would be in a jurisdiction where you would have both a different time zone and a different tax structure. So if you anticipate that ever happening, then we do recommend starting with multiple locations set to yes. You really aren't going to have much of an administrative burden, because once you've set up a venue, you're unlikely to change it. So we've allowed for the flexibility by selecting no, but we recommend that if there's even the remote chance that you might expand or move physically from the perspective of time zone or tax, then select yes. Okay, the next field, approval workflow. This can be set as no or yes. When you select it to yes, then Whurthy Services will add an approval task. So for example, we did look at this when we looked at the cancel booking video. And so in that cancel booking workflow, when the approval workflow is set to yes, then the cancellation approver is tasked to approve the request before then the cancellation action is assigned to the cancellation coordinator. I know that sounds like a lot, but basically, if you are not clear, you can always go and watch the cancel booking video again. But basically, when you select this to yes, it's going to insert an approval task. And Whurthy Services also has a different individual, a different role associated. So there's normally an approver type role, and then there will be an action type role. And so that's specified in the process expertise profile list. But this setting is really about supporting those organizations that are larger. If you are one or two service providers and you're a partnership, there just really isn't that much of a big team, then you'd probably leave this as no, because what that would do is that would really be based on the assumption that you don't need anyone to approve what you are doing for your business. But the moment you shift to having some kind of hierarchy and having staff who you want to take care of certain responsibilities, then you can select this to yes. So we'll leave this set to no. I'm going to scroll down now so we get to the automated loyalty program settings. So we have looked at this before in the automated loyalty program video. And so I don't think there's much to add here, but I will read through the descriptions. So it's a yes, no selection. So do you want to activate the automated loyalty program for customers? If you select yes, then additional options will appear, allowing you to set the thresholds at which customers are elevated to the next loyalty tier. So we can see those below here. Selecting no will turn off the automated elevation for the customer loyalty tier, so they disappear. However, Whurthy will continue to track the number of paid bookings through the customer's loyalty counter. The loyalty tier for customers can always be manually changed through their profile by those accounts that have super user or business admin permissions. In addition, Whurthy will continue to add customers to the members and VIP mailing lists for those customers that also have the Whurthy marketing option activated. And then these two threshold levels. Again, when we've got 10 in there, after 10 paid bookings, the customer is promoted, elevated to the member level loyalty tier, and after 50, their account is elevated to the VIP. So now we get into the Whurthy Services settings. So the different location time zones. The field description for this is the default setting of no is for those organizations that are located in a single time zone. If your organization has locations in different time zones, then select yes. Because therapists are associated with a location, this will enable Whurthy to account for the therapist's local time zone when bookings are made. So just a reminder, the label therapist may be different if you're following along and you've got a different label for the service provider. That may look like stylist or groomer or whatever label you chose. So don't get tripped up on that. But the idea here is that this is very relevant, particularly if your organization is widely dispersed around the world. So if you were international as an organization, when you select yes, then in the venue form, when you are configuring venues, it will ask you for the abbreviation of the time zone. Now, the Whurthy team will help you with that. If you are involved in an installation, a deployment of Whurthy services where you need to select different location time zones as yes, don't do that on your own. That will actually be a part of your onboarding and deployment experience. So we would work with you to get that set up. Okay, so we're going to leave that as no. Display service providers breaks. We looked at this when we were reviewing the setup of therapists or service providers. So you may recall in the service providers form, you not only could adjust their working hours, but you could adjust their break hours. So if you're an organization where, for example, you're all consulting or self-employed and you really don't take breaks, particularly if you don't have any employees, for example, where there would be workplace regulations from your local government, then there would be no requirements around how often break times need to be taken. However, if you have any employees, it's our expectation, which is why we included this feature, it's our expectation that you will have some sort of workplace regulation concerning how long or how many consecutive hours an employee can work. So when you select yes, what this will do is it will allow for those 3 break periods to be selected when each service provider is being set up. And just as a note, it's business admins or super users that get to edit the service provider form. So selecting no hides them. And that by default means that the service provider is going to be available for bookings from their starting time, their working hours when they start, through to their ending time that's listed on their profile. So now we've got a setting that we've not looked at before, and because basically it's an interesting setting. So the choice is yes and no for allow refunds for services. So just so you know, we do within Whurthy Services have the ability to issue credits. So we have talked about credits and prepaid packages, for example. So if someone purchased a 5-pack prepaid package and then they did a booking and they paid for that booking with a credit and then they canceled, Whurthy Services will automatically add that credit back to their prepaid package. Now, if on the other hand, you've got a cash booking that's made, and the cash payment is made, and the customer then cancels, what we have by default is that when that cancellation happens, a business admin or a super user can, in the cancel booking, they will be able to see an issue credit button. And so you will be able to issue the credit. And then that credit will appear and it will be available for the customer when they book, or on the customer's behalf when the staff books for them. In other words, in the booking form, that issue, would you like to apply a service credit checkbox will appear. So by default, there's always the ability for organizations to offer credit. And in our research and our experience, we anticipate maybe the 80-20 rule is applicable here. Most organizations are going to be happy with that default to be able to issue credits. However, some organizations may want to allow for refunds. So I'll read out the description. Do you wish to allow refunds for services? The default setting is no, which means that while bookings can be cancelled, there will be no explicit way within Whurthy to issue a refund against a booking. Selecting yes will allow super users and business admins to issue a refund when the event is marked as cancelled or complete for any amount that has already been marked as paid by the customer. For example, when checking that a customer has paid a deposit, prepaid, or paid for a booking, Whurthy tracks customer revenue against their revenue. However, if you are already using a robust financial system, turning this feature on has the potential to create additional work that may not be in your best interests. This feature is designed to be suited to those businesses that have less sophisticated payment systems and or do not have the ability to track a more comprehensive understanding of a customer's value. So if you are using an existing financial system to track revenue by customer, then it is advised to leave this set as no. So I'm going to leave that as set to no. And then we've got the next setting, which was in the video, the last video of the 4th module, wait list for services. So this is a yes, no. Do you want to activate the wait list feature for Whurthy services? If you select yes, Whurthy will offer a wait list option for full appointments to customers. Please note that the option to join a wait list for the opening slot will only be presented for bookings beyond the current day, not for a same-day search, and only in those instances where the therapist is already booked. And so the whole idea of this is that if, for example, you are run off your feet as a service providing organization and your people are always booked, and you've got a bit of a challenge with people canceling and leaving you with gaps, and you're spending time chasing and trying to fill those bookings, the wait list for services feature is really intended to save you some time. Cancellation window for services. We haven't really looked at that in any of the videos so far, but basically I'll read out the description. It's going to make sense, I'm sure. So you enter the number of hours before the start of an appointment that cancellations are accepted from the client when they view their booking. Once the booking or deposit has been paid for, then only those staff with business admin or superuser accounts will be able to issue refunds on cancelled bookings. So when I say issue refunds, that's really going to start with the default of issuing a credit. The ability to issue a refund will only apply if the issue refunds for services is set to yes. So if you have a default of 0 in this field, this will mean that there is no cancellation window in effect and that customers will be able to cancel a booking with the booking status of 1 booked until the time of the appointment through Whurthy services. Now, that's not the same as them phoning in. If they're phoning in and they're getting staff to manage their booking, then this just doesn't apply because staff get to override the cancellation window. Staff get to see what the cancellation window is, but you can make a decision on that. So for example, one of the advantages of the waitlist for services features when combined with the cancellation window for service feature, you might take a look at the waitlist and see, oh, I've actually got 3 or 4 people already lined up for that booking. And then you can comfortably say, yep, no problem. And you can cancel for it. And they hang up the phone, then you cancel the booking and then you trigger a waitlist task. So entering a positive integer will result in Whurthy preventing the customer from canceling their bookings online and will prompt them to contact you directly. For example, if you have a 48-hour cancellation window, then Whurthy will accept cancellations until the appointment start time minus 48 hours. Now, note that at this time, Whurthy will not count days closed when calculating the cancellation window. Currently, the limit on hours that can be entered is 168 hours. So, okay, so here's the next setting, island discount. Now, this is a term that we came up with when the idea for this feature came to mind. So it's a yes/no field. I'm actually going to set this to yes because in a future video, I'm actually going to be working through this. So the island discount is a value-added feature of Whurthy intended to reward customers that book to maximize your time and availability. How does this work? By default, when a customer selects an opening, Whurthy will first check the shortest duration of available services and then will identify if their intended booking will lead to lost time. For example, if the shortest service duration is 30 minutes and a customer selects a 10:15 a.m. opening, instead of selecting the first opening of 10 a.m., this will create an island that cannot be booked, right? Because if the appointment starts at 10:15, you opened at 10, you've only got a 15-minute slot, but your shortest service is 30 minutes. So Whurthy will no longer be able to book that 10 to 10:15 slot. Okay, so the idea, this is where the label of island discount came from, right? So returning to the description, selecting yes for island discount will lead to Whurthy offering the discount entered below as an incentive for customers to change their booking to the earlier time. This feature is designed to help prevent such time islands from forming in your schedule. Selecting no will mean that no discount incentive is offered, although Whurthy will always suggest an earlier booking when a potential time island is identified. And again, at the end, note if your list of services includes at least 1 service with a duration of 15 minutes, then the island discount will never come into effect, right? So if someone books at 10:15 a.m., and there's that 10 a.m. opening and you have a 15-minute service that could fill that window, then Whurthy is not going to offer the suggestion to the customer to check or to book the earlier time. There will literally be a checkbox, and we'll see it in the next video when we dive into this in detail. If you select yes here, and then in the island discount percentage, you can enter a number. Right now, we've got it set between 0 and 10, but we start with 5. So you might have 1% or 5% or 10%. If you select yes, then as well as that checkbox coming forward, it will incent the customer to accept it because it will say, hey, if you accept this 10 a.m. booking, instead of the 10-15, then we'll give you this extra discount, this percentage discount off. Now, the island discount, when they accept it, there's a little extra special rule. So if they get that, yes, even if you were to say, I've got no island discount, they will still have the checkbox to select an earlier time. If they also have recurring bookings showing and they select the earlier time, all of the recurring bookings will also be booked at the earlier time. So when you think about it, if your shortest service is 30 minutes and you had someone book 6 appointments, you literally, like at 10:15 in the morning, your opening time was at 10, you literally just lost an hour and a half of bookable time inside Whurthy. So Whurthy can't take care of that automatically anymore. So this is one of those things that we would actually encourage organizations that either don't have any problems with this, or if you're new to an online booking system, start with no. And then if you start to notice that you're getting a lot of time islands, like you come in and you're opening up the shop and you're like, oh, my appointments are always, why are they always starting at 10:15? Or why is after lunch, why is my lunch always 15 minutes longer? So if you start to notice that's a problem, then we would invite you to make this change. Come and maybe for a while, maybe for a few months, select yes, maybe enter a 2% discount, for example. And so without really cannibalizing, your revenue, what it can do is start to free up that time. And this is one of those features that is very much a sort of passive hidden feature. It's one of those problems that some organizations don't even realize they have, particularly if they've adopted an online booking system, and it just creates these time islands because it really does not invite or incent the customer to basically cooperate with your schedule. And if we're only talking about 15 minutes, in 9 cases out of 10, a customer's going to go, yeah, sure, I'll take the earlier booking. Not a big deal. Okay. We've already looked at the next 2 options here, offer package upsell and offer recurring booking upsell. Those really, at the booking experience, they're going to bring forward either the upsell for a package related to the service that is being booked or being searched, and also the recurring bookings. Once the customer has selected an opening, it will also bring forward up to 5 additional recurring bookings. So now we're going to scroll down. Here we've got the next field is recurring booking frequency. So enter a number between 1 and 12. The booking frequency will then be applied to the recurring booking pattern. For example, if you select weekly, this is the next field for the pattern, and enter 2 for the frequency, then the customer will be offered a recurring booking every 2 weeks. So we've allowed this to go up to 12. So you could, for example, have every 12 months, and that would allow you to book a yearly appointment. Or that would allow for 5 yearly recurring appointments or bookings to be offered. Typically, what we suspect is a good starting default might be every 5 or every 4 weeks. In testing, we looked at the idea of every month. What's challenging with every month is that Whurthy Services is very literal, and it will go forward just a month. And so what that will end up in, or what that will end up with, is bookings where it's, the first one is on a Monday, and then the next one's a Friday, and then the next one's a Wednesday, and then a Tuesday. So there's a lack of regularity or pattern, as it were, when you go with the monthly booking pattern, when we're looking at the days of the week. Okay. So our suspicion is that a good starting default for an organization would maybe 4 or 5 recur every 4 or 5 weeks that you offer a recurring booking. So then the final field in the recurring booking settings, how many recurrences do you want to offer? For example, if you select monthly for the recurring booking period and 5 in this field, then Whurthy will offer a total of 6 recurring bookings. This will come together when combined, when all fields are completed. If you enter 1 in the recurring booking frequency and you select monthly for the recurring booking pattern and then 5 in recurrence and after, then Whurthy will process up to a total of 6 bookings, the current booking plus 5 recurring bookings. The number of bookings processed will be determined by both availability and the end customer when they confirm the booking. So assuming you've already watched the videos on booking, we get those 5 extra checkboxes. So that's what this last sentence means. So that concludes the initial Whurthy Services settings. We have referred to the opening hours before, and this is where you set them. So this looks very similar to the working hours for the service provider, for the therapist. And so here globally, what you can see is we've set up this organization is open on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We got the start time, the close time. So when you're setting these selections, it will want to have both an opening and a closing time for a day. It won't allow you to have the closing time before the opening time, obviously. And then when you leave both fields of a particular day blank, you're closed on that day. If you have multiple offices or multiple locations, what we'd encourage you to do is to have the earliest opening time for all of your organizations be the earliest time, the opening time, and then the latest for all of the locations, and then use the service provider's working hours in combination with that, because the service providers will be associated with a venue or a location. So, and then finally, under edit tax settings, we have briefly touched on this when we were looking at the Whurthy Foundation video. You can select no or yes for tax events. Typically, we would expect this to be yes. You can say no and just have it off completely. We recommend yes. And so in terms of if you have it set as global, then that means all venues, all bookings will basically be driven by these tax settings. So tax will always be calculated off of what you set here. We recommend, much like the earlier recommendation around location addresses, we recommend maybe starting off by venue. It's not a whole lot of effort to complete the tax settings, like tax one, tax label, tax one amount, tax two label, tax two amount. It's not a whole extra effort by venue to do it. And it gives you that peace of mind in terms of expanding. And another thought that comes to mind as well is you actually have the option to have locations as being virtual, not just physical. So then you have an interesting tax question, because if you're offering services online, that's a whole different tax setup typically. Some organizations will make the choice to not tax bookings online. They may do bookings online taxation based on the jurisdiction that the customer's in versus the taxation of where the service is being delivered from. So given that there are different laws across different jurisdictions, our expectation is the 80-20 rule, leaving tax events as yes, tax scope as by venue. It's not, it's not a big, it's a very small amount of effort to just make those tax settings or make those entries for the tax scope by venue when you are creating a location. So that concludes the review of global settings. We are going to build off of this. We're going to look at some other features such as the island discount in more details and how that works. So this video really serves as a reference point. So you may need to watch it again or bookmark the location of this video or remember where the link to it is inside Whurthy Services. So if you ever forget how anything works, you can always come back and refer to this review. Thank you very much. Whurthy, value made easy.